May our Father, Messiah, and Holy Spirit be with us. But if you're watching this when you're older, you and you love them strawberries. Look how he ate. Father, Lord, I pray. Daniel, in the third year of the reign of King Jehoiakim of Yehuda, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and laid siege to it. Our father never delivered King Jehoiakim of Yehuda into his power, together with some of the vessels of the house of Elohim, and he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his deity. He deposited the vessels in the treasury of his deity. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, his chief officer, to bring some Israelites of royal descent and of the nobility, youths without blemish, handsome, proficient in all wisdom, knowledgeable and intelligent, and capable of serving in the royal palace, and teach them the writings and the language of the Chaldeans. The king allotted daily rations to them from the king's food, and from the wine he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, at the end of which they were to enter the king's service. Among them were the Jehudites, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief officer gave them new names. He named Daniel Belteshazzar, Hananiah Shadrach, Mishael Meshach, and Azariah Abednego. Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the king's food or the wine he drank, so he sought permission of the chief officer not to defile himself. Amen. He wanted to defile himself. And Elohim dispossessed the chief officer to be kind and compassionate toward Daniel. The chief officer said to Daniel, I fear that my master, the king, who allotted food and drink to you, will notice that you look out of sorts, unlike the other youths of your age, and you will put my life in jeopardy with the king. Daniel replied to the guard whom the chief officer had put in charge of Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days, giving us legumes to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the youths who eat of the king's food, and do with your servants as you see fit. He agreed to this plan of theirs and tested them for 10 days. When the 10 days were over, they looked better and healthier than all the youths who were eating of the king's food. So the guard kept on removing their food. Where does the sippy cup at? That's probably what he wants. Over, they looked better and healthier than all the youths who were eating of the king's food. So the guard kept on removing their food and the wine they were supposed to drink, and gave them legumes. Elohim made all 4 of these young men intelligent and proficient in all writings and wisdom. Elohim did that, our Father in heaven. And Daniel had understanding of visions and dreams of all kinds. When the time the king had set for their presentation had come, the chief officer presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king spoke with them, and of them all none was equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So these entered the king's service. Whenever the king put a question to them requiring wisdom and understanding, he found them to be 10 times better than all the magicians and exorcists through his realm. Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus, in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. His spirit was agitated, yet he was overcome by sleep. The king ordered the magicians, exorcists, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to be summoned in order to tell the king what he had dreamed. They came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have had a dream, and I am full of anxiety to know what I have dreamed. The Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Relate the dream to your servants, and we will tell its meaning. The king said in reply to the Chaldeans, I hereby decree, if you will not make the dream and its meaning known to me, you shall be torn limb from limb, and your house is confiscated. But if you tell the dream and its meaning, you shall receive from me gifts, presents, and great honor. Therefore tell me the dream and its meaning. Once again they answered, let the king relate the dream to his servants, and we will tell its meaning. The king said in reply, it is clear to me that you are playing for time, since you see that I have decreed that if you do not make the dream known to me, there is but one verdict for you. You have conspired to tell me something false and fraudulent until circumstances change. So relate the dream to me, and I will then know that you can tell its meaning. The Chaldean said in reply to the king, there is no one on earth who can satisfy the king's demand. For great king or ruler, none has ever asked such a thing of any magician, exorcist, or Chaldean. The thing asked by the king is difficult. There is no one who can tell it to the king except the mighty ones whose abode is not among mortals. They got that right. Amen. Whereupon the king flew into a violent rage and gave an order to do away with all the wise men of Babylon. The decree condemning the wise men to death was issued. Daniel and his companions were about to be put to death when Daniel remonstrated with. There's so many different words there. When Daniel remonstrated with Arach, the captain of the royal guard, who had set out to put the wise men of Babylon to death, He spoke up and said to Arioch, the royal officer, "Why is the decree of the king so urgent?" Thereupon Arioch informed Daniel of the matter. So Daniel went to ask the king for time, that he might tell the meaning to the king. Then Daniel went to his house and informed his companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the matter, that they might implore the Elohim of heaven for help regarding this mystery, so that Daniel and his colleagues would not be put to death, together with the other wise men of Babylon. The mystery was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the Elohim of heaven. Daniel spoke up and said, "Let the name of our Father in heaven be blessed forever and ever, for wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons, removes kings and installs kings. He gives the wise the wisdom and knowledge to those who know. He reveals deep and hidden things, knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I acknowledge and praise you, O Elohim of my fathers, you who have given me wisdom and power, for now you have let me know what we asked of you. You have let us know what concerns the king." Thereupon Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to do away with the wise men of Babylon. He came and said to him as follows, "Do not do away with the wise men of Babylon. Bring me to the king, and I will tell the king the meaning." So Arioch rushed Daniel into the king's presence and said to him, "I have found among the exiles of Yehuda a man who can make the meaning known to the king." The king said in reply to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar, "Can you really make known to me the dream that I saw and its meaning?" Daniel Daniel answered the king and said, "The mystery about which the king has inquired, wise men, exorcists, magicians, and diviners cannot tell the king. But there is an Elohim in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what is to be at the end of days. This is your dream and the vision that entered your mind at bed. O king, the thoughts that came to your mind in your bed are about future events. He who reveals mystery has let you know what is to happen, not because my wisdom is greater than that of other creatures. Has this mystery been revealed to me, but in order that the meaning should be made known to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your mind, O king, as you looked on, there appeared a great statue. This statue which was huge, and its brightness surpassing stood before you, and its appearance was awesome. The head of the statue was of fine gold, its breasts and arms were of silver, and its belly and thighs of bronze. Its legs were of iron, and its feet part iron and part clay. As you looked on, a stone was hewn out, not by hands, and struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay, and crushed him. All at once the iron, clay, bronze, silver, and gold were crushed and became like chaff of threshing floors. A summer a wind carried them off until no trace of them was left. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Such was the dream, and we will now tell the king its meaning. You, O king king of kings, to whom our Father in heaven, to whom the Elohim of heaven has given kingdom, power, might, and glory, into whose hands he has given men, wild beasts, and the fowl of heaven, wherever they may dwell, and to whom he has given dominion over them all. You are the head of gold, but another kingdom will arise after you, inferior to yours, then yet a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule over the whole earth. But the fourth kingdom will be as strong as iron, just as iron crushes and shatters everything. And like iron that smashes, so will it crush and smash all these. You saw the feet and the toes, part potter's clay and part iron. That means it will be a divided kingdom. It will have only some of the stability of iron, inasmuch as you saw iron mixed with common clay. And the toes were part iron and part clay. That means the kingdom will be in part strong and in part brittle. You saw iron mixed with common clay. That means they shall intermingle with the offspring of men, but shall not hold together. Just as iron does not mix with clay, and in the time of those things, the Elohim of heaven will establish a kingdom that shall never be assured, a kingdom that shall not be transferred to another people. It will crush and wipe out all these kingdoms, but shall itself last forever. Just as you saw how a stone was hewn from the mountain, not by hands, and crushed the iron, bronze, clay, silver, and gold, the great Elohim has made known to the king what will happen in the future. The dream is sure and its interpretation reliable. Then King Nebuchadnezzar prostrated himself and paid homage to Daniel and ordered that a meal offering and pleasing offerings be made to him. The king said in reply to Daniel, "Truly your Elohim must be the Elohim of Elohims and master of kings, and the revealer of mysteries to have enabled you to reveal this mystery." The king then elevated Daniel and gave him very many gifts and made him governor over the whole province of Babylon and chief prefect of all the wise men of Babylon. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to administer the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself was at the king's court. Wow, that's amazing. King Nebuchadnezzar made a statue of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits broad. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar then sent word to gather the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, officers, and all the provisional officials to attend the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, officers, and all the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and stood before the statue that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. The herald proclaimed in a loud voice, "You are commanded, O peoples and nations of every language, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, psaltery, bagpipe, and all other types of instruments, to fall down and worship the statue of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever will not fall down and worship shall at once be thrown into a burning fiery furnace." And so as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, psaltery, and all other types of instruments, all peoples and nations of every language fell down and worshipped the statue of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Seizing the occasion, certain Chaldeans came forward to slander the Yehudim. They spoke up and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, gave an order that everyone who hears the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, psaltery, bagpipe, and all types of instruments must fall down and worship the golden statue. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown into a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Yehudim whom you appointed to administer the providence of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those men pay no heed to you. O king, they do not serve your mighty one or worship the statue of gold that you have set up." You about to eat, bro. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in raging fury, ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to be brought to those. So those men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke to them and said, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my mighty one, or worship the statue of gold that I have set up? Now, if you are ready to fall down and worship the statue that I have made, when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, zither, lyre, the psaltery, and bagpipe, and all other types of instruments, well and good. But if you will not worship, you shall at once be thrown into a burning fiery furnace. And what mighty one is there that can save you from my power?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said in reply to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter, for if so it must be, our Elohim, whom we serve, is able to save us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will save us from your power, O king. But even if he does not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your mighty one or worship the statue of gold that you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar was so filled with rage at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his visage was distorted, and he gave an order to heat up the furnace to 7 times its usual heat. He commanded some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and to throw them into the burning fiery furnace. So these men in their shirts, trousers, hats, and other garments were bound and thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent and the furnace was heated to excess, a tongue of flame killed the men who carried up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But those 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, dropped down into the burning fiery furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and rising in haste, addressed his companions, saying, Did we not throw 3 men bound into the fire?" They spoke in reply, "Surely, O king," he answered. "But I see 4 men walking about, unbound and unharmed in the fire, and the 4th looks like a divine being." Nebuchadnezzar then approached the hatch of the burning fiery furnace and called Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High Elohim, "Come out." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. The satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the royal companions gathered around to look at those men, on whose bodies the fire had no effect, the hair of whose heads had not been singed, whose shirts looked no different, to whom not even the odor of fire clung. Nebuchadnezzar spoke up and said, "Blessed be the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel to save his servants, who, trusting in him, flouted the king's decree at the risk of their lives, rather than serve or worship any mighty one, but their own Elohim. I hereby give an order that anyone of any people or nation or whatever language who blasphemes the Elohim of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb and his house confiscated, for there is no other Elohim who is able to save in this way." Thereupon the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all people and nations of every language that inhabit the whole earth, may your well-being abound. The signs and wonders that the Most High Elohim has worked for me, I am pleased to relate. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. For sure it is, and his dominion endures throughout the generations forever and ever. I added it forever and ever. Amen. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living serenely in my house, flourishing in my palace. I had a dream that frightened me, and my thoughts in bed and the vision of my mind alarmed me. I gave in order to bring all the wise men of Babylon before me to let me know the meaning of the dream. The magicians, exorcists, Chaldeans, and diviners came, and I related the dream to them, but they could not make its meaning known to me. Finally, Daniel, called Belteshazzar after the name of my God, in whom the spirit of the holy gods was, came to me, and I related the dream to him, saying, "Belteshazzar, chief magician, in whom I know the spirit of the holy gods to be, in whom no mystery baffles, tell me the meaning of my dream, vision that I have seen, and the visions of my mind in bed." I saw a tree of great height in the midst of the earth. The tree grew and became mighty. Its top reached heaven, and it was visible to the ends of the earth. Its foliage was beautiful, and its fruit abundant. There was food for all in it. Beneath it the beasts of the field found shade, and the birds of the sky dwelt on its branches. All creatures fed on it. In the vision of my mind in bed, I looked and saw a holy watcher coming down from heaven. He called loudly and said, "Hew down the tree, lop off its branches, strip off its foliage, scatter its fruit. Let the beasts of the field flee from beneath it, and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump with its roots in the ground, and fetters of iron and bronze in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and share earth's verdure with the beast. Let his mind be altered from that of a man. Let him be given the mind of a beast, and let 7 seasons pass over him. This sentence is decreed by the watchers. This verdict is commanded by the holy ones, so that all creatures may know that the Most High is sovereign over the realm of men, and he gives it to whom he hopes, and he may set over it. Even the lowest of men, I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had this dream. Now you, Belteshazzar, tell me its meaning, since all the wise men of my kingdom are not able to make its meaning known to me. But you are able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in you." Then Daniel, called Belteshazzar, was perplexed for a while and alarmed by his thoughts. The king addressed him. "Let the dream and its meaning not alarm you." Belteshazzar replied, "My master, would that the dream were for your enemy and its meaning for your foe. The tree that you saw grow and become mighty, whose top reached heaven, which was visible throughout the earth, whose foliage was beautiful, whose fruit was so abundant that there was food for all in it, beneath which the beasts of the field dwelt, and in whose branches the birds of the sky lodged. It is you, O king, you who have grown and become mighty, whose greatness has grown to reach heaven, and whose dominion is to the end of the earth." The holy watcher, whom the king saw descend from heaven and say, "Hew down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump with its roots in the ground. In fetters of iron and bronze, and the grass of the field, let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and share the lot of the beasts of the field, until 7 seasons pass over him. This is its meaning, O king. It is a decree of the Most High which has overtaken my master, the king. You will be driven away from men, and have your habitation with the beasts of the field. You will be fed grass like cattle." This is real. "And be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 seasons will pass over you until you come to know that the Most High is sovereign over the realm of man, and he gives it to whom he hopes. And the meaning of the command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots is that the kingdom will remain yours from the time you come to know that heaven is sovereign." Man. "Therefore, O king, may my advice be acceptable to you. Redeem your sins by beneficence, and your iniquities by generosity to the poor. Then your sincerity may be extended." All this befell King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as he was walking on the roof of the royal palace at Babylon, the king exclaimed, "There is great Babylon, which I built by my vast power to be a royal residence for the glory of my majesty." The words were still on the king's lips when a voice fell from heaven. "It has been decreed for you, O King Nebuchadnezzar, the kingdom has passed out of your hands. You are being driven away from men, and your habitation is to be with the beasts of the field. You are to be fed grass like cattle, and 7 seasons will pass over you until you come to know that the Most High is sovereign over the realm of man, and he gives it to whom he hopes." There and then the sentence was carried out upon Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven away from men. He ate grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like eagle's feathers, and his nails like the talons of birds. When the time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason was restored to me. I blessed the Most High, and praised and glorified the ever-living one, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and whose kingdom endures throughout the generations. All the inhabitants of the earth are of no account. He does as he hopes with the host of heaven and with the inhabitants of the earth. There is none to stay his hand, or say to him, "What have you done?" There and then my reason was restored to me, and my majesty and splendor were restored to me for the glory of my kingdom. My companions and nobles sought me out, and I was reestablished over my kingdom, and added greatness was given to me. So now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and glorify the King of heaven, all of whose works are just, and whose ways are right, and who was able to humble those who behave arrogantly. Yeah, Father Messiah, Daniel is a really good book, man.